This is Sally Hallingstad. I'm your current global president for Women's Energy Network. And today on Path to Power, we have the privilege of having Rachel Collins, who is not only a proud LSU grad, but she was recently appointed to the CEO position at Sharetec, a leading core processing and digital banking technology partner for credit unions across the country. Rachel brings more than 2 decades of experience in enterprise software, guiding organizations through major growth, innovation, and operational transformation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel.
Thanks for having me, Sally. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you spending a Monday morning early, the week of a holiday. So, all great
Well,
stuff.
anytime there's turkey a few days later, I'll do anything basically. So it's not a problem. Well, let's
That's
get started with you just kind of giving us a little about you, your background, how you got to where you are today with ShareTech. Love to hear kind of the highlights.
great. My least favorite topic is talking about myself, so I'll try to make it short and sweet. But I started my career here in Houston, which is where I'm based. I've been here nearly 30 years. Was recruited right out of school, and I studied statistics and computer science. So, little propeller head, and started my career as a hands-on keyboard developer, writing code. And so that led me to, in the early 2000s, in my 20s, being fearless or dumb, either one, but starting my own company. And that company, we grew to about a dozen people, and we were doing custom development using Java and middleware for a lot of big energy companies here in the Houston area, as well as in Canada and Calgary. Worked on a lot of financial trading applications, and spent many years doing that. So it was a great part of my career, just learning, not just around energy and technology, but running a business, which it's not easy. And so I stopped running that business around 7 years later, and people ask me why, what happened. And it's two words. Their names are Ellie and Betsy. I had two daughters that were about 17 months apart, and it just became really challenging to run a business and be the face of the business and be involved in sales and handling back office and everything, and having two girls that are 17 months apart. At the time, they were like 1 and 3. So led me to a different place in my career where I just tripped into investor-backed software businesses and started working behind the scenes to integrate different businesses that had been acquired and really learned those playbooks. And so I have been an operator in investor-backed software companies ever since. I say my jam is deep vertical market software. That just means industry specific. And I've spent most of my career doing back office software. So a lot of accounting, financial systems, and that is what I'm doing today. But the vast majority of my career has been in energy, upstream, midstream, downstream, and then most recently, I made a little pivot, and I am now in fintech, serving credit unions, which has been awesome. Absolutely love the industry. Personally, I mentioned I have two daughters. They are now all grown. One has graduated from college. She is also a proud LSU Tiger. And I have one in college, another proud LSU Tiger. So we bleed purple and gold around here. My husband has learned to just embrace that. He went to Texas Tech. And then we have our caboose. Our son, Henry, is 10 years old, and just all boy, plays every sport you could imagine. And we have two Frenchies. We've got Humphrey and Fred, and they typically lay under my feet and snore while I'm working. So if you hear any odd noises, that's probably them. That's a little bit about me.
I did not know about the Frenchies. My brother has one, and I will say that she's my favorite niece, and I'll let my niece hear that. So
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, we have one that he is all Frenchy. He withholds his love. He's very grumpy, but just the cutest. Everybody wants his attention because he just has a way with people. So big personalities, small dogs with big personalities, I'll tell you that.
I agree. Althea is my niece, and she loves people, and it's just everybody has to pet her. She has to be petted. It's adorable. So I always think that dogs just bring joy to everyone. So I mean, kids too, but j dogs definitely. Everybody gets a smile out of them.
100%. I agree with you.
Yeah. So obviously, very, very in-depth career. I love that you started literally just as an keep like a programmer, right? What were some of the best lessons you've learned from starting your own company?
Yeah, that it's hard. Number one, I mean, I have so much respect for founders of businesses because just taking the leap, the risk of starting something from nothing. I did that when I was younger because I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have kids in college, and so it was just a good time for me to try that. But people who do that now, I'm just so impressed with their, just believing in themselves and knowing that they can do that. I learned then just more the ins and outs of business in general. So instead of just really focusing on what I did, like my function, being a programmer, I got to see everything. So we had customers outside of the United States. I was involved in sales. I was involved in international taxes. I was involved in payroll. And so it really gave me this kind of jumpstart understanding business more holistically, which was a great experience for me, being very technical and being very focused, kind of forced me to zoom out a little bit and understand the dynamics of the business, and also taught me to lead people, which it's probably the hardest thing to learn in your career, is to be a people leader and to do it well and to adapt. There's no single leadership style that's the right one. You really have to adapt it to what your team needs, and every individual is different. So I think that was probably the biggest learning experience for me, was just figuring out how to lead people. Still haven't figured it out completely, but it got me started.
Going back to your different careers and like obviously starting your own company and then jumping back into what you do now, how has your network really helped? Like, did you have a pretty solid network before you started your own business so that you knew you might have some people you could reach out to about doing business with them? Or how does that all play in? And then kind of now
Yeah.
to where you are, like just tell us a little bit about your networking and how it's helped.
Well, it's probably the most important thing that I have leveraged in my career. So, I've met people who really plan their career. They say, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to work for a consulting company, I'm going to, do these things. I never did that. I really just kind of, you could say maybe it was even meandering, but I tended to just lean on my network and find opportunities that came through my network. There was really very little me intentionally going out and finding something. It just always seemed to fall into place when I could leverage my network. And so, starting my first business, even though I was young, I was leveraging the contacts that I'd already met and made in the energy industry. And it just continued from there. So I think it's so critically important. I always say to my girls who are now entering the workforce that you never succeed by yourself. It is always about the people who are there supporting you along the way. And it's so important. And it's also, that's what makes it important to always be a kind and gracious human, right? You're not going to get very far if you're a jerk in life. And so just making sure that you nurture your network and that you're authentic. But it's critical. I mean, that's how you get the support. That's how you find opportunities. That's how you ensure that you find the right culture for yourself. So all of that is just critically important.
I like what you just said there about how you find the right culture for yourself. You have, you were in energy, you're in fintech. Like, what do you think the best culture for you is?
Yeah, great question. It's something that, I think as I've matured in my career, I've focused more and more on culture. And really what that means to me is businesses are just groups of people. That's it. And and culture matters. And so making sure that you find a group of people where you're like-minded, you have the same, moral compass, people have high integrity, people believe in the value of other people, they're committed to each other. That matters to me. Loyalty matters to me. I know it's kind of an old school notion, but it still matters to me. So I think just making sure that you're aligned that way with people that kind of have that same fabric that you have, that's where you're going to be the most successful. That's where you're going to be your most authentic self. And that's most likely where you're going to feel the most valued. So I've been in cultures where I think there were some conflicts as far as, what I believed versus other people. And that has typically come into play when it comes to valuing people and seeing businesses not as assets, not as a software asset. No, these are groups of people and they matter. And treating them well, that has become more and more important throughout my career.
As a woman, how have you seen your gender be helpful in your career?
Yeah. That's another great question. I'm in a very male-dominated universe professionally. I know that you and I have spoken about that before. Being in technology, having most of my career in energy, now being investor-backed, all of that tends to be very male-oriented. I think that what I've seen is, first of all, um, I do bring a softer side, I believe, that I do care about people and culture, and I talk about that. Um, I also think that we can become very competitive. This imagery of power and strength and dominance is very typically male oriented. I believe that power is about influence and collaboration and, gaining followership, gaining people's trust over time and building those strong relationships. So I think it's just been a different style. I still see some people that I would say have a little bit more of a, um, I call it antiquated. It's a bit of an antiquated leadership style to give directives and to micromanage. And I think things have really changed for the good over the past, let's say, 5, 10 years, especially with COVID, that it's much more around gaining people's followership and being influential. I don't like receiving directives, therefore I don't give them. And I think there are just more progressive ways of leading a team than being that autocratic sort of iron-fisted leader. So, and I hope that that's what my children experience in the workforce, that they have someone who truly cares about them, that provides them mentorship and makes them feel valued, because it's important. We spend, I've talked about this too, we spend the majority of our time with people that we work with. And so it's really important to enjoy that and enjoy those people.
What are some tips? Like, I really like the way that you're talking about leadership and how you, like, for lack of a better word, don't micromanage, right? Like you really allow people to thrive where they are. What are some ways that you were able to get yourself to that point to be that type of leader?
Yeah. Take some trial and error. I mean, definitely, I've had plenty of mistakes where I look back and think, oh, I could have handled that differently. I will say being a parent has made me a better leader. I think that early in my career as a leader, I often questioned, well, why can't you work the weekend? I mean, what's the big deal? And I think I realize now, having 3 kids, that you can't, you have to balance your priorities. And so being respectful of that, I think also just learning that personalities are different, therefore they need something different in a leader. And you have to go where people are. You can't have a singular style of leadership. And that's just something that you learn as you mature and you grow and you see what works, and you make mistakes and see what doesn't work. But it's all about influencing people and being real. One lesson that I learned not too long ago was my head of HR said, "Hey, you are just so goal focused and you are so results oriented that sometimes you can be intimidating and you're not showing your human side, right? Like you're not showing the weaknesses, you're not being vulnerable." And I was like, "Really?" And so I had to be very intentional about thinking about that instead of just go, 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 and being a pace setter that people can't always keep up with, giving people a safe space to give me feedback and tell me what they need. And so that's been something that I've had to learn, just being a very ambitious, driven person, that not everyone operates at your pace. Not everyone communicates the way that you communicate. So, just being self-aware is a big part of learning and growing and maturing as a leader.
I don't want to blanket stereotypes, but you just saying that about how you weren't showing your human side. Do you think that, especially in energy and fintech, like it's male dominated, as we've already discussed, do you think that that is happening more and more nowadays, where men are understanding that it's better to show your human side too? Or do you still think that women have that advantage of being more, in tune with themselves, in tune with others?
Great question. I think it depends. I think it depends on the environment that you're in and the culture that you're in. I've seen some investors that their culture is very much never show weakness, always have the answer. They're very competitive. And so I would say that people don't feel comfortable in those environments, in those cultures, showing their softer sides or showing vulnerability. That's just not something that is accepted or rewarded. However, I think I also see environments where it's not just women, but it's also men that they are taking advantage of just being real and being relatable and human. And I really think that what is required to do that is to have a safe space, and that comes from the top down. It's leaders creating an environment where people feel comfortable, that they can speak openly and they can talk about not just their ideas and, the work environment, what they're working on, but how they feel and whether they feel successful, whether they feel valued. So I have learned that that is really about creating that safe space. And it's something that I've had to be very deliberate in doing because I know that not all of this just comes naturally. Um, so that's something that I've had to learn.
And I think the going off of that, like how you've learned and how you become the leader you have, what is one of the toughest lessons you had to learn through that process or
Yeah.
overcome?
One of the toughest situations recently that I've had, and it's actually pretty quickly after you and I met, was that things change and you don't control them. And you have to roll with it sometimes. No one's ever in control of everything. That's a good learning lesson for us. But I was involved with a business that I absolutely loved. I'd put my heart and soul into that business, and I was all in. And I thought, this business, there's so much potential that this is my end state. But dynamics changed, investors changed, different personalities entered the business, and there was a different vision for that future. And I wasn't aligned with the new vision. And so, that was a hard point in my career because we parted ways and I had to move on to the unknown and figure out what am I going to do next. And so no one enjoys being in that limbo of what's next for me. It was just a huge disappointment. I was so disappointed because I'd had in my head, I thought this is the way it's going to be and this is the way it's going to turn out. And it didn't. And so just a very humbling lesson. But I will say that it absolutely led me to a new place where I am where I'm supposed to be. And I do feel valued and I know that I'm making a positive change. So, it's just having a little faith in that. But that's tough when you go through it. And that's the time where you need your network the most.
Is there anything that you would suggest to people? Yeah, let me rephrase this. There's always, and I'm going to butcher this, but you know how they always say about women that are at the top should turn back around and ha offer that hand up, right? What type of hand would you offer, so to speak, to the women coming up behind you? Whether that's advice, insight, whatever it might be. What's that help that you would give the women behind you?
I think, gosh, there's so much. And I think you get to a point in your career where you're no longer looking forward and being ambitious and trying to get to the next step, that you've accomplished what you'd like to accomplish. And so it's all about looking backward and, creating new leaders and supporting them. I think you and I met at a conference, and one of the things that I've thought about that's important to me is just being yourself and don't apologize for it. I think so often we have this perception of the way that we're supposed to be and what strength looks like. And I mean, I've read books and I've seen podcasts where, hey, women, you need to be more assertive, that people need to hear your voice. You need to lean in. And I'm like, do I? I mean, you need to also be authentic. And so I think just being yourself and being unapologetic about that is important to me. And that's what I tell my daughters is that you are who you are, you have superpowers, and you don't need to portray someone else. You just have to be the best version of yourself. And that's always going to get you farther than trying to, you know, um, be someone else, imitate someone else's style.
I love that you said that because I think this whole interview has been you chatting about like being yourself and just things will happen that are meant to happen. Not that you have to believe in that, right? Like you don't have to believe in the universe doing things for you, but I do think that if you are yourself, everything that good, bad, ugly, everything that happens is happening because you're yourself and you just learn how to deal with it and you become a better person because of it. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate all of your thoughts today, Rachel. Is there anything specific that you would like to end with or leave our audience with like pondering for the rest of the day?
Sure. I would leave the audience with one last thing is just to always question the why. Question the status quo. Why do I have to be this way? Why do I have to wear suits? Or why can't I have a 4-day work week and be successful? Or, I mean, there are just so many norms that we have that we don't even know why anymore. And so we feel like we have to conform to this image. And the question is why. So always asking the why. I think for me, that's gotten me farther than I ever could have imagined. For instance, I was a really shy kid, very shy, and I wanted to be a mathematician. And never in a million years would anyone have said she's going to be the CEO of a software company. And yet I never had restrictions in my mind about what I could or couldn't do. And I think that's important. And that's because I had a very strong mother that supported me and told me you can be anything, even if you want to play professional football, which my husband still laughs at and says, no, you can't. But I argue that I could. But ultimately, it's not having that constrained thoughts, not feeling that you have to fit into a specific mold or box, and just really questioning the why and status quo. I would say keep doing that, keep asking questions, keep being curious, keep learning. I think that will take you a long way.